Epic Quest rocks. What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video, and we have a very special video planned for all of you today. But first, before we get into all of that, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe if you enjoy daily King of Fighters Allstar content such as this. And let's go ahead and get into today's video, because this is a video that I have been planning to do for quite a while now, ever since Netmarble released the original announcement that we would be getting Epic Quest Chapter 2. So that is exactly what we are going to be doing today, as we are going to be walking you guys through each and every single stage and detail of Epic Quest Chapter 2, Chapter 1, Twisted World. So in this video today, we are going to be going ahead and going through all the different information that you need to know in order to clear this mode. Just know, you guys, before we get into this, that this is massively endgame content. This is something that is extremely difficult for everybody, including veterans. So if you're a new or intermediate player, don't feel too bad if you have issues with this thing. But without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, you guys, so the first thing that we're going to talk about here is going to be farming buffs. So the first thing you're going to want to know as a new player to this is over on the left hand side you will see your total buffs that you've acquired for the Epic Quest, and you can get the Epic Quest buffs from just farming any of these chapters and doing some of these missions. So really, my recommendation to you guys as far as which one of these you're going to want to grind on, it's going to come down to which chapter you can comfortably do. If you're somebody that lacks a lot of limited banner characters, these will tend to be a little bit difficult, so kind of keep that in mind. But that is something that you're going to want to pay attention to, and you're definitely going to need. Speaking of those buffs dropping from these chapters, these are the characters that you can put on your team in order to get even more buff drops. So you can go through here and pick whichever of these characters you have on your account, and they are going to buff your overall drop rate. Now, if you have any additional questions on any of the stuff that is going on in Epic Quest, I do highly recommend that you check out the game guide, because Netmarble has actually done a fairly good job of putting this together, and it goes through a ton of the minutia details that you're going to need to know in order to properly get through this thing. But really, when it comes down to the grind aspect of this, you just want to pick whichever chapter you can comfortably do and go from there. Everybody's going to be different, so keep that in mind. Now, if we go over to the craft menu right now, you are also going to notice that you can currently craft these auto clear tickets for Epic Quest. This is really cool. You can get 20 of these a week, but it is going to cost you your normal auto clear tickets. So it's up to you guys if you deem this to be something that is worth your while. It's going to come down to how many of these auto clear tickets that you guys have. Of course, auto clear tickets are very valuable, especially around times where we have world drop events. So kind of keep that in mind, but it's up to you guys. Now, the next thing I want to go ahead and talk about here, speaking of buffs, is going to be your daily missions. You want to make sure that you do your daily missions on a daily basis, especially this one here, because this one here is going to give you a plus 300 to a random stat for your buffs overall. So this is something that is very, very worthwhile. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you guys do this on a daily basis, just so that way you don't miss out on those juicy rewards every single day. So keep that in mind, you guys. It's something you want to make sure that you guys pay attention to. But the next thing that I want to go ahead and talk about is going to be something that is quite the game changer and is one of the coolest aspects of this entire new Epic Quest update. And that is, of course, going to be the exchange shop for these characters. So the Phantom Nest characters do have an exchange shop. If you go over to the Always tab in your exchange shop categories, you will notice that you can pick up a memory once per month per character for these Phantom Nest characters, as well as their imprint stones. And these coins are going to be things that you can obtain through playing the Epic Quest. We don't necessarily have any confirmation from Netmarble as far as whether or not they plan on giving us any more access to these than we already have. So keep that in mind. But the really cool thing about this is, even if you're not planning on building up these BS characters, which even then I highly recommend that you build them up, especially Zero and Ignis, even though they are going to be something that is going to be kind of future content at this point for a lot of people, especially if they plan on building them up to any considerable awakening level. But even if you're not planning on building them, you could even get 3 of those, and then later on when you get a BS limited banner, you can probably go ahead and exchange 3 of those memories for a generic BS memory. Now, of course, always remember your CP requirements for these stages, so if your characters do not meet those, you will need to plan accordingly and build them up further, but chances are if you're doing this content, you already knew that. But I'm also going to be taking the chance with this video to go ahead and catalog all of the cutscenes in this as well, so this is going to be the full footage of the full Twisted World chapter, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'll be jumping in intermittently to give you guys some tips and tricks as we go, but I won't be talking through the entire guide itself. But I do have timestamps in the description, and the chapter function is active, so you guys can skip to whatever chapter you are struggling with. So next up here, I want to talk about a few things you're going to run into. Now, of course, these waves are going to have some enemies that are going to boast ultra armor, and the bosses will oftentimes also have ultra armor. Now, ultra armor basically means that these characters are immune to hit stuns, so basically you're going to have to do one of 2 things. If you don't have a bunch of limited banner characters to just bully these guys and nuke them off the face of the earth, then you can basically just kind of dodge them and run around until their ultra armor wears off. You'll just want to pay attention to whenever that gold shine to these characters wears off of them, and then that means you can go ahead and just play them as normal. So that's the first thing you're going to run into. The next thing is going to be this option card here. Now, you are going to need this card in order to remove the armor from Alexandrite, who is the boss for mission 6, and the way that you're going to go ahead and pick this up, if you pay attention here, you'll see that you're going to go to your episode missions, and then on your basic missions you will see that you're going to get a couple of copies of this card through playing this. So basically you're going to need this card attached to one of your characters in order to do damage to Alexandrite whenever you get to mission 6, but that's pretty much what you're looking at there and something you'll need. But that's going to do it for me for the intro, you guys. I will be back intermittently to give you guys tips and details on some of this stuff as we go, but let's go ahead and get into Epic Quest Chapter 2. Now all of this brings us to mission 6, you guys, so make sure you have Twisted Temporal Invader equipped to one of your characters and go ahead and start up the mission. When it comes to Alexandrite, he is not a character that is too difficult to get through as long as you have that option card attached. So just make sure you have that option card attached to one of your characters. That way you can remove his armor and get through this mission. Otherwise, this is a pretty straightforward boss. Not a lot to talk about, so I'll let you guys get back to enjoying the show. Pardon the interruption, you guys, but I'm going to go ahead and give you as much of a guide for this final boss as I possibly can. So if you are a free-to-play player that doesn't have a ton of limited banner characters, or you have low buffs and you're attempting this, basically you are going to be rushing against the clock because you are going to have a tough time getting this boss down before the timer runs out. So keep that in mind. But the first thing that you're going to need to know is you need to have a team composed of a character of each type. So you're going to need to make a team composed of a defensive type, a balance type, and an attack type in order to destroy these pillars that Maxima is going to be spawning in randomly, and he's going to have 4 waves of these things. Basically, the first wave will have 1, the second wave will have 2, and so on and so forth. What these pillars do is they basically decrease the damage received by Maxima, so you're going to need to pick whichever typing that you need in particular at the time, and it's always random whenever he spawns those pillars, so just pay attention to the rotating icons around them in order to figure out which character you'll need to destroy them. But basically you'll need to destroy those in order to stop him from having that decreased damage received, and then that will stun the boss, so you'll have a little bit of time to go ahead and just get some free hits in. Make sure you take full advantage of that time, because again, you are rushing against the clock unless you have limited banner units. But again, you need to make sure you destroy those, otherwise he is not going to be wanting to take any damage whatsoever, at least comparatively speaking to what you would have been doing prior to those being spawned. But otherwise, the name of the game here is just going to be juke. You are going to need to hit and run a lot. So as you'll notice here, I'm basically trying to sprinkle in my skills before he has a wind-up for an animation for one of his attacks, and then I just dodge behind him and go back to doing the same thing and rinse and repeat. But whenever he gets that bar that is below his HP bar up to 100%, he is going to go ahead and start decreasing it slowly, and what that is going to do is cause him to start using different attacks. So he is going to have this ground AoE. This is going to do damage over time, so be careful with that thing. You can go ahead and use your ultimates and things of that nature in order to kill some of the duration of it, but it is going to be dealing a decent chunk of damage if you just stand there flat-footed. So make sure you guys move around, dodge around, use an ultimate, whatever you need to do until it goes away, and then you'll be in good shape. So just pay attention to that mini bar below his HP bar, because again, once it hits 100%, it will start ticking down, and he is going to start using a lot of his better attacks. But on the final attack he's going to use here, he's going to charge up and he is going to use an AoE ultimate. Basically, what you can do to get away from that is just dodge through a corner, kind of maybe just roll around in the corner, and you can dodge that fairly easily, and you'll be able to see it coming from a mile away. Or you can do what I did in this clip here, and you can just stand in it like an idiot. It's up to you, really. But those are pretty much going to be the main points that you're going to need to know in order to clear this boss. So really, the big things that you guys need to know: make sure that you build a team comprised of 1 character of each type. So you need a balance, an attack, and a defensive type. You need to be very quick on your feet to be dodging his attacks, because if you do not and you lose one of these characters, basically what that means is the next time he summons those pillars, you had best hope that it is not the character typing that you lost from that KO, because if that happens, you are going to have pretty much an impossible feat in front of you in order to finish this, and it can ruin your run. The next thing that you need to know is whenever those pillars spawn, that you need to pick the corresponding character type to the emblem that is spinning around the pillars in order to destroy them, because he is going to be taking decreased damage received. And then once that meter hits 100%, it is going to start ticking down, and that's when he's going to start using a lot of his AoE moves, and you'll just need to pay attention to those. Again, that ground aura will do damage over time. You can use ultimates, or you can just roll around, or whatever you need to do in order to dodge out on a bunch of that damage, especially if you are using free-to-play units, or units that are not limited banner characters that can't just tank through it. And then from there, just pay attention. If he uses that ultimate AoE, it's pretty easy to telegraph it. He'll just stand in the middle of the screen and kind of just stand there charging it up, so you'll know when it's coming. Just dodge around in a corner, and it's fairly easily dodged. But that's pretty much going to be it for the Epic Quest Chapter 2 Twisted World Guide, you guys. I hope you found it informative. If you did, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. I will be back with another video tomorrow, but I hope this is something that you guys found beneficial. And without further ado, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming and finish this boss off.
opinion.